great prospect or you need a pass rusher, and there's a great one. So Jacksonville's got their quarterback. They're trying to upgrade weapons. They paid for him. Aiden Hutchinson, number 1 pick. Go get him. He's a great rush end, relentless motor. He's great. Detroit's at 2. They should move down. The only team in the first round I look at and I think I would move up, Philadelphia's in a very interesting space. They have the 15th, 16th, and 19th picks. And what they really need is a wide receiver because they took one in the first round a couple years ago, Jalen Reagor, and he has been, pretty close to a bust. And if you're going to give Jalen Hurts a fair shot, and I always said this about Baker, Daniel Jones, go get Kenny Golladay just to see if he can play, right? But then don't get stubborn if you bring in Kenny Golladay and Daniel Jones and he don't connect, don't get stubborn, move off the quarterback. But if you want to figure out if Jalen Hurts can play, go get him a star receiver, and there's about 4 sort of can't-miss receivers in this draft. I would have no problem moving up to get one of those, giving away my picks. So that's their big need. There's a lot of good receivers, but there's 3 or 4 that are really special. And there's an argument you may be able to get one at 15, but if 3 of them get yanked off the board at about 12, 13, you may want to give one of those picks up and get that wide receiver. Because Philadelphia made the playoffs with Jalen Hurts, and it was kind of a rebuilding roster. So they've upgraded the roster in free agency. They went and got a Hassan Reddick, a great pass rusher. They've got their quarterback for the near future. They need weapons. So that Philadelphia is a give up a pick, go up. Generally, I'm a move down in the draft. But, if you feel you're close and you can win a Super Bowl without a first-round pick, Philadelphia is not currently in that space. Joy with the news.
No.
Is his agent, and he hasn't called back, and there's this, everybody's like, wait, time out. Now, obviously, he may be waiting, push, betting on himself to get more money. Lamar Jackson there is no comp for him in the NFL. Like Kyler Murray kind of plays like Russell Wilson. There's a lot of comps. Josh Allen reminds me of Big Ben in his first 3 years. There's a lot of comps. There is no comp for Lamar Jackson. He's got 2 qualities I love. He wins a lot of games, and he so deeply cares about winning. I'm not going to mention names, but a lot of guys are in it for the money and the fame. He deeply cares about winning. But his style is interesting. I've talked to scouts about this. They don't think he'll necessarily age well, and I think Baltimore's like, listen, we'd rather pay him big now. What we don't want to do is get into a Matt Ryan situation where we feel a little trapped at the end. Because, he'll stretch for the extra yards. He'll take shots. He's not Russell Wilson avoiding stuff. He'll take shots. He tends to be better with a lead than coming from behind. He can pass the ball better than his critics say, but it's not Justin Herbert or Mahomes looking. So there's nothing quite like him in the league. I would sign him because he wins a lot. He deeply cares. And by the way, you can see a lot of stars in sports. A lot of them care. They just care about the wrong stuff. He cares about the right stuff. I think Dak, deep down, I understood why Dak took the money. He played for free for like 3 to 4 years for the biggest brand in America, and he got him to the playoffs twice. Like, I got Dak saying, come on now. You paid Zeke. You paid the left tackle. You pay an Amari. This is the Cowboys. It's the biggest brand. Like, I get certain guys. I think Burrow will take a pay cut. Josh Allen, not a pay cut. Burrow will do a team-friendly deal. Stafford did. Mahomes did. Josh Allen did. I think Lamar has that kind of DNA. Like, he wants to win games. He's not looking for the last dollar. That's just not who he is. But it is interesting. There are athletes. Like, when LeBron was in his prime, I would have signed him to a 12-year deal. That body and the way he took care of it, Brady was practicing getting sacked 7 years ago. But there are athletes out there. When Cam Newton jumped into the league, it was very obvious he was going to run really hot, and it wasn't going to last really long. He just took too many shots. That was a meteor. Lamar, who I've always liked way more than Cam, because I think he cares about the right stuff. Cam always didn't. He's going to age better than Cam. First of all, he's harder to hit because there's nothing else like him. He's so elusive. But I do think what Baltimore would like to do, I think they'd like to sign him now and start the contract now, because I do think they have concerns about, hey, now he's going into his 5th year. He's hurt. And so, but I will say this. There's all this, polarization and consternation with Lamar Jackson. Folks, a couple rules. Like in any business, do people care about the right things? He so cares about winning football games. Tony Gonzalez, who used to work here, sat on this couch, and I asked him one time, how many players love football? And he said, 3%. That seems low. Lamar's one of the three. They've had to go to him and say, stop working out on jet skis in the offseason. He is so competitive and so into it. If you get him near a beach or a jet ski, he's like, let's go. I love that part of him. He is hyper competitive, wants to win, cares about football, so I'd pay him. But I do think they look at it and think, we'd rather pay him now and get this going. Because Atlanta got a little trapped with the erosion of Matt Ryan. They're going to pay $45 million for Matt. He's on another team. And you see in baseball and basketball a lot, teams get trapped with contracts. You don't see it in the NFL. You really don't. Like, Matt Ryan's a rarity. They would have loved to have moved off that thing about 2 years ago. Now, Matt's going to be fine in Indianapolis, but he's not the kind of quarterback with a bad O-line, limited skill people that can carry you. He's just not at this point in his career. Brock Heward played 6 years in the NFL, teammate of Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. Just wrote a story about Russell Wilson and the Hawks. You know, it's interesting. You've been so close to that organization. Now you live in Denver. And so, Russell's following you. So let's start with this. You went out and surveyed and interviewed a bunch of insiders around the NFL on the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll stuff. What did they say? What was your conclusion from all the people you talked to?
Yeah, Colin, thank you for having me. Also, by the way, Joy and I have something in common.
What?
We're mouth breathers. And and she's right. On a plane, that mask can capture the drool, like when you're sleeping and your mouth's open. So I just want to get that out there. Yeah, Colin, I did. I reached out to about 30 different people, heard back from most. And I think two things jumped out. Number one, and this wasn't just pro Seahawks media. I really tried to get a national players, former players, coaches, executives, just tried to get a broad reach. And I would say more than half of the responses sided a little bit more with the Seahawks, saying, yep,
wow,
it was time. It was time for the Seahawks. You were not going to repair the relationship. And I think the other thing woven almost amidst all of the answers, Colin, was it was Russell's legacy versus Pete's philosophy. That Russell right now wants to capture his legacy. One of our peers at Fox wrote me back and said one of the most telling images was at the Super Bowl with Tom Brady a couple years ago. And I remember this too, and it jumped out to me when Russ is sitting in the commissioner's booth with Goodell watching that game, and you could see the look on his face like, man, Tom is everything that I desire and strive to be. I want to be the greatest. I want to be winning these Super Bowls. And it was almost at that moment, and if you remember, it wasn't that long after with Dan Patrick and that he went on the warpath saying, hey, I need help. I need stars. I need more things that kind of were opposite of his brand. And I think it was that moment that he took his legacy and said, I want it in my hands, and I want the best situation. And the best situation is not going to be playing under Pete's philosophy moving forward.
So I've taken more the Russell side. Basically, the Seahawks have drafted very, very poorly over the last 5 or 6 years. And in a weapons league, they got a bad O-line, second-tier running backs, and outside of DK Metcalf, Lockett a little. They need more weapons. They're kind of average at tight end, average at running back, average O-line. And that's why, by the way, I think he chose Denver. Do you see any problems going forward in Denver? Because if you're talking to these people, and it sounds like he's almost too aspirational, that gets in the way of stuff. Do you see any problems ahead for the Broncos and Russell Wilson?
Well, I think that falls on number 3. And I think this is a restart. This is a redo. This is an opportunity. You just got done talking about players that deeply care. And Russell deeply cares about what? About winning. So much so that he named his third child Win, right? And that's not a joke. That's his son's name. His son's name is Win, W-I-N. That's what he cares about. But I think at times, and part of this was the Seattle locker room, Colin, that he came into. Remember when he was drafted as a third rounder, there was Matt Flynn, there's T-Jack, beloved by teammates. And here's the guy that just can't do wrong. And the guy that's an overachiever and is all about winning from 5 a.m. in the morning till 10 p.m. at night, doing whatever, right? No time to sleep. And I think there was with Marshawn and Richard and Earl and that whole cast of characters in that locker room, Michael Bennett, it was tough for him to connect. And I think that is the single biggest thing. You mentioned that I backed up Peyton Manning, and I did. And I watched over time because of Peyton's relentlessness and his competitiveness. It brought people together. He had a reset, Peyton Manning, when he went to Denver.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? I'm going to bring this thing together. It's going to be my offense. It's going to be our team, but it's going to be a lot of my offense, and I'm going to connect. I really believe, Colin, in this next phase of Russell's life, And I hope someone says this to him in his camp and his team, says, hey, Russell, I know winning's the most important. I know you drive and you're a worker. I know you just had all these dudes out to your place in San Diego putting on Camp Bronco, but you need to connect. You need to listen. And frankly, Colin, one of your great strengths, knowing you these years, is I don't know if there's a better listener. You know, Joy can attest to this, your producers, people around you. When you are engaged, you just listen. Like, you want to learn.